Cypress, and I'm going to give a brief introduction just before we move into what we're going to be covering in today's training session. So next slide. Yeah. So Cypress is a test automation tool that is basically similar to Selenium WebDriver or WebDriver IO. And it's obviously JavaScript based. And like Mr. Deji said, there's been a lot of buzz around Cypress recently, and it's obviously sort of good to have like the basic understanding and also build up on the basic knowledge that you have as well. And there's a couple of reasons why JavaScript is just sort of different to all the other test automation tools that are out there. And one of the reasons is it's a JavaScript only tool. And just like Selenium works in multiple programming languages like Java, Python, C#, and JavaScript, we obviously have Cypress that only uses the JavaScript language. And Cypress it was obviously built by the front-end developers for front-end developers. And another reason why Cypress is different is you can run it only in Chrome. And I have seen on the Cypress tool itself, it shows you the option to run it in Firefox, and I think Edge as well. We're going to see the options there, but it's always sort of recommended to always run your Cypress in Chrome alone. And another reason why Cypress is different is it's not just an automation tool, it is an automation testing tool. And the same way we have test runners in all our previous automation packs. For Cypress, the only test runner is what we call Mocha, M-O-C-H-A. And I think we're going to be looking into Mocha today. If not, probably the very next time we have the next class. And another reason why Cypress is different is it is very, very fast. And it's a testing tool that you can use to run your test in just minutes. And because developers obviously don't like things that take time, they just want to run the code and make sure everything works ASAP. So that's why Cypress was just sort of developed. And some of the basic things you need to know about Cypress is it's JavaScript based, run it in Chrome, and the only test runner that it uses is what we call Mocha. So moving on to the next slide. So we're going to be we're even looking into test grouping with Mocha, so that's good. So we're going to be looking into the setup of Cypress, how we can access elements, validation. So this is where assertion comes into play. And then we'll also be looking at test grouping with Mocha. And in terms of the setting up of the Cypress, I'm not going to do like the installation bits today. I would expect everyone to do it based on the instructions that will be given. And if you have any issues, you can let me know in the group chat. Then we can then resolve it then. But some of the basic tools or the prerequisites that you need, you just need two things. You need to download Node.js, and just like I mentioned, that Cypress is a JavaScript testing tool. So we're going to be using a couple of tool sets. So that's Node.js and NPM. And you need to download Node.js using the URL here. I can get that sent into the group, and download any versions from 8.0 and above. That's fine. So anything after 8.0 is fine. You can download the Node.js on your system. And once that is done, or before you download it, you can check if you have Node.js on your system. Maybe by chance, during one of the trainings you were doing, you probably downloaded it. So you can obviously do that first of all. Check that you have Node.js before you download it. Node.js space -- version. And if you press enter, then it's going to show you the version of Node.js that you have. Or if you don't see anything pop up in your terminal or your command prompt, then you need to go download Node.js using the link that will be sent into the group. And the other thing, or the other tool we are going to be using is we're going to be using an IDE, just as we use Visual Studio for C# and IntelliJ for Java. For Cypress, you can use all of those ones as well, but it's sort of recommended to use Visual Studio Code. Visual Studio Code is what we're going to be using for the Cypress training. And you can download it using this link here as well, or you can just go on Google Visual Studio Code downloads. Download the one that suits your operating system, Windows, Mac, Linux. Download a stable version or the updated version as well, and then you're good to go. And moving on, so this is where I am going to walk you through what you need to do in terms of installing Cypress. But once you've done the prerequisites, and if you encounter any issues at all, kindly let me know, and then we can take a look. But in terms of installing Cypress, I'm going to talk through the steps, then bring up my own terminal, and then start the practical bit. Or I would actually talk through the steps and the other slides that I have as well. Then I can then bring up the terminal, then we would then walk through it together. So installing of Cypress, you open up your terminal or your command prompt on your laptop, and you navigate to the folder that you want your file to be stored or your project to be stored. So usually if you're using a Windows, it's going to be in your C drive. If you're using a Mac, it's going to be in your documents or your downloads or just your desktop or anything like that. So once you've navigated to that folder, the next thing you need to do is to create a new folder for your project itself. And we create folders in our terminals using mkdir, basically meaning make or create a new directory. So mkdir space, then your project name. Then once you've done that, you open up this folder in your Visual Studio Code. So you open up the Visual Studio Code that you've downloaded, then you open up the folder that has already been created, which is what you've called it. And then once you've done that, or once you've created your folder, the next thing, obviously you see that it is obviously empty because you've not created anything in there. So the next thing we're going to do is then to create the package.json file. And the way you create that is by using the npm init-y. And the npm command basically creates the package.json file, which initiates the folder to be ready for the npm commands. And you can remember at the very start, I said we need a couple of tool sets. We need Node.js and we need npm. So this npm is considered to be a JavaScript package manager. And then if you come from, I feel like everybody have obviously used Java, and we've also dealt with a C# automation project before. So in Java, the equivalent of the package manager in Java is what we call Maven. In C# it's called Nugget. If you use Python, it's called PyP. And if you use Ruby, it's called Germs. So this npm commands that we'll be using, it comes inbuilt with the Node.js that you've downloaded. So you don't have to install it again. And this npm also has like hundreds and thousands of packages that are just available for you to use once you've downloaded Node.js on your computer. So we'll be using this npm to also install Cypress and other packages that we need to be able to run our Cypress-based project as well. And just a little bit about Cypress, it's an open source product, but there are also some to pay components or some paid components that you can obviously use as well, but it's considered to be open source. There are a lot of open source products out there, and Cypress is basically one of them. And then once we've basically initiated a project using the npm init-y and it's created a package.json file for us, the next thing we need to do then is to install Cypress. So we are going to be installing the latest version of Cypress. and we're going to be using the same npm command. So that's npm install Cypress. And this is basically going to install the latest Cypress version on the project. So it's always sort of recommended to install the Cypress in your the different project that you're working on. So instead of installing the Cypress on your system, you install it inside the project you're working on. So previously, when I started learning Cypress on my own, I installed the version, I think it was the version 3. And I went back to that same project and I was still able to run my test on the version 3 that I installed. And recently I installed a new Cypress on my new project that I created, and I installed the version 12. So it depends, but the way I did, if you're going to be installing a version 3, it's going to be npm install Cypress at 3. But if you want to install the latest one, you just need to say npm install Cypress, and that basically installs the latest one on your project. So every time you create a new Cypress project, you have to install Cypress on it every single time. And the very first time you try installing Cypress, it may take a couple of minutes. But if you've installed it previously, or you will see that when you install it now and you install it again on the next project, it's going to work ASAP, like fast. It wouldn't take time. But just a key information just for you to know that when you install it the first time, it may take time. But when I'm going to install it now, you would see it wouldn't take a lot of time. But just to let you all know. And then once we've installed Cypress using this command, the next thing we're going to do is to try to open up Cypress, the Cypress UI itself. And the way we do that is to run the npx Cypress open in our terminal in Visual Studio Code. So Visual Studio Code has its own terminal as well, or command prompts. And that is where we're going to be running this npm init-y, npm install Cypress, and also npx Cypress open. So we're going to be using the terminal in Visual Studio Code to run most of the commands that would be needing to run. So once we have run this command npx Cypress open, let me now move on to my next slide. So once you've pressed enter, the next thing you're going to see is it's going to open up a new app on your laptop, and it's going to be the Cypress app. And you can see this is version 13 that got installed on my recent projects where I got the screenshots from. So based on the version that you've installed, that was installed on your system, that is what you're going to see on the Cypress UI app when it comes up. So once you press enter after you typed in npx Cypress open, the next thing you're going to see is going to be a Cypress window. So if it's your first time, it's going to show you what's new on the version. You can decide to watch it, or you can just click on continue. And then the next thing you would see would be this welcome page. We're going to be doing the end-to-end testing. So you click on end-to-end testing. It's going to say not configured, but if you open the Cypress previously, it's going to show configured in green. But for the very first time, it's going to show end-to-end testing. So you click on the end-to-end testing that says not configured. And once we've done that, it's going to show you the configuration files. All you need to click on is continue. Then, like I said, so the order, so like I said, we're going to be using Chrome. So Chrome is what you're going to click on, and then you click on Start End-to-End Testing in Chrome. And once you've done that, the next slide, you click on the first option on that page. I forgot to take a screenshot. So you click on the first option on the page, and thereafter, the next thing you're going to see is your end-to-end testing page has successfully been configured, and you see different examples of Cypress templates that Cypress has obviously given to us. So you can click on any one of them, just like run them, or you can just close them for now or leave them the way it is. But while we are running all of these commands, we are going to be seeing a couple of changes on your Visual Studio Code. So you're going to be seeing all the changes, a couple of changes in your Visual Studio Code, and I'm going to show you. So the first one that we add, since the project was empty when we first opened it up, is the package.json file, which was created when we did the npm init-y. So that's the first file you will see under your project folder structure. And while you are doing all of the other installation of Cypress or what one did we do? So while you're doing your installation of Cypress and while you're also configuring your end-to-end testing as well, all the other folders would also be created underneath your folder structure as well. So the most important folder that we are going to be using here, or one of the most important folders we'll be using, is what we call end E2E, as end to end. Or if you're using an older version of Cypress version, then it's going to be called integration. So the end-to-end folder is where we would be creating our files that we'll be using to run our tests, we'll be creating our page objects, and all the other files we'll be needing as well. So basically, that is sort of considered our Java folder in Java Automation Framework instance, but in Cypress it's called end-to-end or it's called integration folder. So right, so moving on to the practical side now. So that is all my slides complete. So we're all moving on to the practical side. Where we would be opening up our Visual Studio Code, installing Cypress, then creating our first test or writing our first test, setting elements, doing validation, and also the grouping with Mocha as well. So first up, once you've installed Visual Studio Code, you would need to open up the file or the application. Sorry, you need to open up the application, and then the first thing we actually need to do is to create the directory or the folder based on the instructions we have on our slides. So let's go back to the slides. So we need to create a folder, first of all, using the terminal or your command prompt on your laptop. So I'm going to do that. Terminal, yeah. Yeah, just to make it look big for everyone. And I'm just going to navigate to where I want to create the folder itself. Let me look at my folder. Just a minute. Project. Okay. Right. So that's ls. Project. Good. So the next thing we need to do is to use this command mkdir. Then I'm going to call the folder name or the project name Cypress Training. Cypress Training. Yeah, good. So once that has been created in your terminal or your command prompt, the next thing you need to do is to go to your Visual Studio Code and open up that folder. So I'm going to click on File, Open, and navigate to the folder. So it's called Cypress Training. Click on Open. Right. And then, like I said, we don't have anything on the Cypress Training folder itself, and that's because nothing has been created just yet. So the next thing based on the instruction now is to initialize the project using npm init-y, and this is basically going to create the project package.json file. So I then need to open up my terminal, new terminal in my Visual Studio Code, and npm and you can see we have a package.json file created just here. And once that is done, I can then go ahead to install Cypress on or inside this my project. So to install Cypress, npm install Cypress. And this command is basically going to install the latest version of Cypress for me. So we're going to click on enter. And like I said, this shouldn't take time because I have installed Cypress before, but if it's your first time, it could take a couple of minutes, but that's not an issue at all. Good. And I think if I want to check the version of Cypress I have, I just need to type, let's see if this works. Okay, that's not working. But yeah, we're going to see the version of Cypress we installed very soon anyways. So right, I've installed Cypress. The next thing I want to do now is to open up Cypress, and then I would, okay, before we go on, so once we've installed the Cypress, you can see we have a couple of new folders already installed as well on this side. You can see the package lock.json and then the node module as well. So we're not going to be using any of these ones at the very start, so we don't need to worry about them. But if you open up Cypress now and do all the other configurations, you would see a lot more folders on this side of the Visual Studio Code project. So let's go on to open up Cypress. Right, so that opened on my other desktop. So we have opened up Cypress, and like I said, you should see end-to-end testing not configured. Click on that one, click on continue. We're using Chrome, start end-to-end testing in Chrome. Good. Now you need to click on scaffold example spec. So this was the other page I didn't take a screenshot of. So scaffold example specs, click on that, click on OK, I got it, because these are the examples, example templates that Cypress is giving us. And we click on OK, I got it, and we have this page now. And these are just the example templates, and we can decide to like run any of them. So if we click on to do, for example, that's basically going to run a couple of tests that has already been written as the templates and all of those things. So once we have looked into the different Cypress methods for how to write a test and everything like that, all of this is going to be making sense to you. And you can obviously come back to check the examples out just to improve your understanding of how to write tests, how to group tests, the different codes that were used and everything like that. And all of this code is also present in your Visual Studio Code as well. So you can see we have a couple of new files or folders under the folder here. We have cypress.config.js. We also have a new Cypress folder that has the end-to-end and also has the examples that were created for us as well, and a couple of other folders also. So when we've obviously looked through how to write your test, the different assertions, how to access elements, how to group your test as well, all the examples there will sort of make sense to you, and you will be able to come back in there by yourself and look through each one of them and also run them yourself as well. So this is regarding actions. We've got an example URL as well. This is regarding assertions, the different types of assertions in Cypress. This is probably regarding accepting cookie or a cookie test or something. This is around navigation. So once we've obviously gone through the training, you can obviously come back in here and look through the example codes, try them out yourself, play around with it, make a couple of changes, and obviously improve your knowledge on Cypress also. So yeah, moving on now. Let me just quickly check my notes to make sure I've not missed out anything I was going to say so far. So we've covered setting up of Cypress, the prerequisite, and also what you need to install afterwards. We've covered the Cypress configuration. Now we're going to move on to writing our very first test. And okay, yep, that's us up to date. Now, like I mentioned previously, one of the most important folders is called the end-to-end folder. And this is where we are going to be creating our files that are going to be running our test or writing our test inside of. So the next thing we're going to do now is let me first of all show all of us the test website we're going to be using. So the test website we would be using is the To-Do MVC app website. So basically, just a website created for just to-do list and all. So I'm going to be looking into adding a couple of things on the list. So adding a couple of things on the list, toggling the to-do list, and filtering out the to-do list as well to click on the active ones, the completed ones. If I add one more, if I click on all, so it's going to show us all the list. So we're going to be looking into filtering the list, toggling the list as well, and also a couple of validations also. So that's what we're going to look at tonight using this test app. So basically, this is going to be the test website we would be using. And okay, let me stop what is currently running at the end. So I'm going to basically close this Cypress UI now. And all you need to do in your terminal, in your Visual Studio Code, is to do a Control-C, and that basically stops it from running. So it's no longer showing at the back at all, and it's basically closed as well. I'm going to close my terminal as well, so I'm not confused. And right, we are going to be focusing on Visual Studio Code now and move on from there. So I'm going to be testing the To-Do MVC app to-do list. And the next thing we need to do now is to create our file, which is sort of considered our feature file, but we're going to be creating our Cypress file under end-to-end folder. So if you right click on that, you click on new file, and we're going to call it To-Do MVC. And the extensions you need, because it's a Cypress project or a JavaScript project, is .cy.js. So that's .cypress.javascript. So right, we have created a new file now. So the next thing we need to do is to put a reference at the very top just for autocomplete support for Cypress. So in Java, in IntelliJ, you notice that if you are using some keywords, if you type them like after maybe public, like if you type PU, it's going to show you, or if you type P, for instance, small letter P, it's going to show you the list of options you have for like the keywords you can pick from the list. So I'm going to be doing the same thing in Visual Studio Code as well. But in order to do that, we need to have a reference at the very top just for some autocomplete support for Cypress. And in order to do that, we basically just type reference types. Cypress, then we close that up. And this is what's going to be helping us with our autocomplete going forward. And like I mentioned earlier, the test runner that we currently have is Mocha for Cypress, and it comes inbuilt with Cypress, so we don't need to install it. We've installed Cypress already, so that automatically means we've also installed Mocha as well. And it is the only test runner that comes with Cypress, and we must, no, we have to, we must use it. And that's just another difference from Selenium, where you can run your Selenium code wherever you want with any test runner you want. But when we're dealing with Cypress, we only use the Mocha test runner. And in order to write our test, we need to use the it function. And this is just how we write it. So in order to write our test, we start with it. You can see I typed it, and it already gave me a list. So this reference that we have at the top is what is helping us with the autocomplete. So it's giving us a couple of suggestions that we can use. And you can see Cypress type, Mocha. So these are just basic Cypress commands, or sort of like plugins. We call them plugins or Cypress commands that you can use within your Cypress project. So we're going to be using the it function to write our test. So it and should navigate to the to-do app website. So this is basic simple English. And this is the syntax we use. And if I put sci.visit, and I go ahead and copy this URL, paste it in here, and then I open up Cypress, npx, npx. You can see it already showing configured here. And if I go to the bottom of this list, you would see my to-do MVC that I created. Click on that, then it's going to run the test for me. And the only test I've asked it to run is to navigate to the URL. So it's basically done that for me as well. And that ran in, it's going to be considered 1 second. So that ran in 1 second, navigated to the website for me, site.visit, and that is just that one done. So if we go back to the website, to Visual Studio Code, just to sort of explain what has happened. So what we've basically done is to tell Cypress to basically navigate to the website for us, just as simple as that. And the syntax that we've used the it function. And if you're familiar with JavaScript, there are two parameters that it accepts. It accepts a string, which is a sentence, and it has to be in the single quotes. Then it accepts a function as well. So this two brackets, or the open and closing bracket we have here, is also something similar to writing function in this instance. But if you don't want to do that, you basically just use all of this to do it instead. So if you're familiar with JavaScript, you'll be familiar with this syntax as well. But if you're not, that's also fine. So basically, if you want to run your test or write your test in a Cypress project or Cypress framework, this is the way you do it. You have a sentence or a string, then you then write your function afterwards. And basically what we've told it to do is to simply navigate to the website. We've used the CY object, and it's a built-in object in Cypress that is basically used to call all the Cypress APIs. So I'm going to show us the Cypress documentation website as well. So you can obviously look through the website later on also. It's got a lot of information on it. And we're using the Sci object, and we're using the visit method as well. So the visit method is basically just navigating to the website that you specified within that method for it to go to. So it's basically navigating to the website you've specified for it to go to. And for instance, if I'm going to run that again just to show you something. Okay, so that is run. So if I want this test to fail, for instance, I'm going to change the URL and I'm going to allow the test to fail. Does not exist. If I go back to my Cypress UI, you can see it's already run it for me. And that is because any changes that you've made in your Visual Studio Code, if your Cypress UI is still opened, is going to get triggered automatically. And you can see the error that is given me is plain and simple. Site.visit is failed trying to load this specific URL. The response we received from the WebDriver was 404 not found. And the error is just plain and simple. It's basically telling you that it doesn't exist. You can't find the URL that you specified. So another thing we can do is, because every change that you make in Visual Studio Code, it automatically gets triggered here. But in order for you to not let that happen, you can decide to come here and trigger it by yourself. But if you want to do that, you need to put a code in your package, in one of your JSON files that you have in your project. And you're going to basically turn off the watch for changes method. So you need to turn it, I think you need to turn it off. So you turn it to false, give it a false value. So it doesn't automatically take up any changes that are currently making. And all you need to do is to come here and just run the test yourself. And there you go. So you can obviously see that the test has failed. The explanation is simple, and then Cypress automatically ran it by itself as well. But we're going to turn that off shortly. So how do we turn that off? So if we go back into I'm going to remove, okay, let's first turn it off. Then we remove the link that we've added at the end. Then we go back to Cypress to run it by ourselves. So you need to come into your, I believe is this file. Yeah. I think is this file. And all you need to add is this line of sentence, watch for file changes, give you a false value. Oh, watch for file changes, false, good. So now let me remove the does not exist that I've added to the URL. And if I go back to Cypress itself, this example files can be confusing. Why is this not closing? Okay, I'm not sure. I'm just going to scroll down. If I click on this file, yeah, and if I make any change in here, I'm just going to put rubbish in here, and I come back here. I don't expect it to load. Good. But if I load it by myself, I'm expecting it to fail because the URL is not correct. So that's fine. So we basically turned off the automatic detection that Cypress has on your Visual Studio Code. So you can only run the test here when you want it to run. So it's not going to be detected automatically. So I'm going to keep that open. So now that we've obviously seen how to navigate to a website, I'm going to open up the Cypress.io documentation that we have and show you guys. So it's doc.cypress.io, and it's a good way for, well, the documentation has got a lot of resources in it, and it's also a good way for you to improve your knowledge on Cypress, the different commands, the different syntax, and any other thing that you need to learn as well. So first of all, let me see, interacting with elements. So the only one we've used now, I think, is .visit. Let me see where we can find that other command. Yeah, Cypress.visit. You can see it's got other things or other options you can use with the .visit as well. But the only one that we've tried is the site.visit taking in a URL. Got the site.visit taking in a URL and options. Site.visit taking in options as well. And it's giving you the different usages down here. So you can obviously take a look later on within your own spare time just to read through or just glance through the different commands that we are going to be looking into today. So I know one of the other ones we'll be looking into is site.get. And if we look at the site.get, what did I see? Yeah, site.get, yeah. So it's taking in a selector, alias, selector and option, alias and option as well. So there are different usages for the different commands used in Cypress as well. So you can obviously take a look within your own spare time. I will get the link sent across to the group chat as well, just for your own reading and your own resource as well. But absolutely, this resource is very, very important if you're going to be using Cypress in your day-to-day job or even in your own spare time as well, just like improve your knowledge on Cypress. So you can obviously go through it and read it also. So just a lot of information on it. So just have a look. And they also have their own YouTube as well. So you can also take a look as well if you want to. So moving on back to Visual Studio Code. I'm going to close this. Okay, I'm not going to close it just yet. So now moving on, we are going to continue writing our test. And we are going to write a simple test that basically adds an item to the to-do list. And adding the item to the to-do list, we'll add an item to the to-do list. We'll toggle the to-do list. And then we'll also carry out some validations based on what we've done to the item on the to-do list as well. So I'm going to try adding an item to the to-do list now, so that's good. So that has already been added. But then how do I pick up what we call the locator or the syntax that we need to use? So if you're using a normal Chrome and you're trying to get a locator, you need to basically right click, then click on inspect. But we are going to be using the Cypress UI interface to do all of this one. So we're going to click on this inspecting element icon over here. And then we are going to be inspecting the field where we need to enter our to-do list. So this is it over here. You can see it's already highlighted. If I highlight anywhere else, and if I highlight the toggle, it's going to give us the locator is basically going to change. But I highlight here, we have a different one here. But I highlight the length Cypress itself, we have a different locator in quotes here as well. But the first one I want to do based on how is going to work manually is to inspect the field where we need to type in the to-do list I want to add to the list. So if I get that up, and that's giving me site.get. So this is another Cypress command or Cypress method that is very popular, and we are going to be using it a lot today. We've used site.visit, we're using site.get. We're going to use site.contains as well. So site.get, so this is basically going to get the element and then basically validate that it's on the page before you then tell it to perform another action. So site.get, I will copy this to clipboard and then go back to my Cypress command, to my Visual Studio Code, sorry. And I'm going to paste that. And I'm going to basically send in keys. So in Java, you say .send, but in Cypress is .type. And what do you want to type into it? Learn Cypress. And press enter afterwards. So this is what's going to happen. So I think I made a mistake having this one here. So let me just get this deleted. Right. So my Visual Studio Code, I want Cypress to go to this URL, and I want it to add a new list, a new item to the to-do list called Learn Cypress, and press enter so it's visible on the list. So all I need to do now is to come back to my Cypress UI and run the test. Then you can see, okay, let me change the title of the test I have here. Should add a new item to the to-do list. So basically it needs to be meaningful, because whatever you have here is what is also going to show on the UI as well. So if I reload this page, should add a new item to the to-do list. And if you notice something, as I'm going through this line of code, you see something changing on the UI front as well. So if I click on, I've done a site.visit, so it's gone to the URL. Site.get is highlighted that field for me, this field over here. So it's basically highlighted it. Site.get gets that field for me, then type in something inside. .type. I told it to type Learn Cypress, then press enter. So that's what it's done already. If I go down here to line 3, you can see it's typed it already, and then also showing me on the list as well. And you can also see it showing before and after on the screen also. Before, then after is basically typed and press enter. So that's what happened over there. So that's just a simple test that we've written, but this is just simply just adding an item to the to-do list for me. And that's just basically it. Well, just the beginning. But we've obviously used site.get. We've navigated to the website. We've added a new item to the list. Now let's do a couple of toggling or manipulation to what we currently have. Just the one item that we have on the list. So now I'm going to get the element that basically clicks on the checkbox. I want Cypress to click on this box. And how do we do that? You basically pick up the inspect element icon as well. Come down here to the checkbox that you want to get a locator for. You click on that. You can see it's also changed here. All I'm going to do is copy to clipboard. Go back to my Visual Studio Code. I'm going to paste what I just copied. And it's a toggle box. So I want Cypress to click on it. So I just need to do .click. So now that I've told it to click on it, let's go back to our Cypress UI and let's run all the tests again. Good. So you can see it's clicked on it and it's obviously like crossed it out as well. So if I scroll, put my cursor on each of the commands that I have here, site.visit, site.get, enter in something. So it's put something on my to-do list. Side.get, the toggle is highlighted a toggle box already, like the checkbox. Then it's basically going to click on it. You see the before and the after as well. So this is really, really good. So it basically shows you the before, shows you the after, shows you what is done based on the command that you put in Visual Studio Code also. Just a minute. Yes. So we've done adding an item to the list, clicking on it to toggle it. Now we're going to do a couple of validations, or we'll do a couple of validations. So moving on back to our code, we are going to make a couple of changes to some of the commands that we have previously, which is the side.get, like entering an item on the to-do list for us. So we're going to verify or validate that the item is actually on the list. So let me comment this one out, that is basically toggling it. So I'm going to validate that the item that we've told Cypress to fill into the list is actually what is on the list as well. So if we go back to our Cypress UI, and I'm going to run that test again. So it's basically entered it for me on the list. I'm going to get the element for the lens Cypress item. So side.get label, copy that. And if I go back to my Visual Studio Code, I'm going to paste that here. So this is the element for the new item that I just added to the list. And I want to verify that the item I've told Cypress to add to the list is what is actually showing on the list. So how do we do that? So we say side.get the element, the locator of the element, dot should. So we'll be using should for our assertions. So if you look in the Cypress documentation, should is the keyword we use for creating or validating or for assertions basically in Cypress. So if I say should, and it was already showing me all the other methods or all the other conditions. Yes. So these are all called conditions. So should is showing me all the conditions that Cypress has. Should be at least, should be below, should be called, should, it basically goes down and down and down. But I'm going to be using should have text. And I believe I have that somewhere down here. Should have text. I'm just going to type should have dot text. I want it to contain a specific text. And what text do I have? I have lens Cypress. And if I go back to my Cypress UI and I run that, that should pass. So it says expected the label element to have lens Cypress, and that passed. It showed me one test pass and it ran in 774 milliseconds. And if I go down, that added that to the list, get the label, assert that it is on the list actually for me. Now we can do another validation for this lens Cypress item that we have on the to-do list. We can verify that it is not striked true. You know, when you tick it that you've done it, it basically has like a line on it to basically tell you that it's been striked true or it's already been ticked in that circular box. So basically we're trying to validate that this box here is not ticked, like it's not checked. So what do? We get the locator for that box, side.get, toggle, go to our Visual Studio Code, and I want to verify that that circular box is not checked or is not ticked. So I've gotten the locator, and I'm going to say dot should not not be checked. So all of this, you can, so if you want to know what conditions to use, this is where the documentation obviously comes in, just so you have an understanding of when to use what, and when not to use this condition as well. You don't have to cram everything. Learn the basic ones. Have text, not to be checked. Have CSS, not have descendants. Be less than, be called, just so that you have, if you have an understanding of all of these little ones, you obviously know which one should be used when, which one shouldn't be used when. If you don't also know what any of these conditions mean, you can go online on Google to Google it, or go to the Cypress documentation to find syntaxes of how they look like, how are they used, and whatnot. That's just what you're meant to do. So you're not meant to know all of these conditions off the top of your head, but it'd be good if you know the basic ones, the little ones, and when they're meant to be used also. So you're basically using should not be checked. Meant to be a dot, should not be checked. Good. So I verifying that the toggle box is not checked or ticked. If we go back to Cypress UI and then we run that, brilliant. So it wasn't checked, and that was verified or validated when we ran the test. So that basically passed. And if we go into the test, or into the file that we're currently writing our testing, we can do a couple of more validations as well. So I'm going to obviously uncheck this one. So we basically ticked it. So site.get toggle.click is going to click on that checkbox for us, and is going to be ticked and shown as completed. Now let us do a couple of validations on let's verify that the item on the list has now been ticked, and it has like a line on it that says, oh, this is already striked through, which means that it's already been done and it's been completed as well. So in order to do that, we are going to be doing site.get label, and label is the locator for the item on the list, the lens Cypress item that I currently have on my list. So if I go back here, site.get label dot should have CSS. So the reason why I'm not like inspecting, like right clicking, then going on to now be looking for the CSS or the ID or the expert locator is because Cypress, you know that Cypress, so I think I probably forgot to mention this earlier, Cypress installed the version of Chrome that is going to be using to run the test for us. So this version of Chrome that keeps popping up, this one is separate from the version of Chrome that I have on my laptop. It's a different app. So this is the version of Chrome. Chrome 116 is the one that Cypress installed, that it is using itself to run all of this test for us. And it obviously has access to all of the HTML DOMs on the websites that we are navigating to. So it's picking up all the locators by itself. So that's why we're able to use the icon here, click on this one, then it's giving us the locator. Clicking on here, then it's giving us a locator here as well. Clicking on here, giving us a locator. Clicking on here, giving us a locator. So basically has access to like the HTML locator used to create the page. So we don't have to be like right clicking on inspect, then getting all of those locators by ourselves. So all of this has been done by Cypress for us. So if we go back to what we were writing, so we are trying to verify that the item on the list is now striked through. It's been toggled, it's been ticked off, it's been done, it's been completed. So we're trying to verify that there's a line on Learn Cypress. And that basically has a separate HTML code for that one. So we are using .should for the assertion. .should have CSS text decoration line through. And if I run this test fully, it would navigate to the website, add an item to the list for me, assert that the item I told Cypress to add is exactly what I am verifying in my Visual Studio Code, assert that it's not being toggled, it's not being ticked off. Now go ahead and toggle that for me, .click. You can see it's already toggled. Clicked on it, then it strikes through the Learn Cypress. Then I want you to verify that the item on the list has now been striked off itself. So it's been striked off. So we're having to use a CSS property called text decoration line, and it has a value of line through. So all of this is going to be in the HTML commands. And basically that's just what you need to do when you're dealing with, or when you're trying to verify that an item has been striked through or anything like that, based on the website that you're using or based on what you're trying to verify or validate in your code. So now that this has been striked through, I want it to click on completed for me. I want it to click on completed. I want to click on completed. I should actually click on completed. I'm not sure why that's not clicking. Let's see. Oh, sorry. So that should click on, I want you to click on completed for me. And then I want to do a validation that I feel like when it clicks on completed, it should show me only one item on the list. So that's what I wanted to do. So I want you to click on completed, then show me that, oh, there's just one item on the list that is showing as completed, basically. And it should not have like any other descendants or anything at all. So let us do that. So if we go back to our Visual Studio Code, so let's go back to our Visual Studio Code. And I want you to click on completed, like I said. Click on completed. How do we do that? So we can either use the inspect element icon. I don't know why this isn't clicking. Let me try running it again. Okay, so this is a locator that is a button for me, but I don't want to use this. I want to use the side.contains. So this is another method. We've used .visit, .get. We're going to use .contains. So, clear completed. I want you to clear completed for me. Actually, I don't want you to click on completed. I want you to clear all the items that are completed off the list. And then I want to validate that there is nothing showing on the list at all. Because if I click on clear completed, nothing is showing on the list at all. So let me add that back. Then Cypress. So I want you to click on clear completed, and basically nothing should show on the list. So I'm going to verify that there's nothing on the list also. So if I move on to Visual Studio Code, and I click on side.contains, it should contain. So if I'm using side.contains, I need to pick up the words the way they are written, capital C, capital small c. So if I go back to my Visual Studio Code, clear completed, .click, I want it to be clicked on. Oh, this is incorrect. I made a mistake. Dot click. And if I try running this now, yep, you can see if I come down here, contains clear completed. If it clicks on it, there's nothing showing on the list anymore. So it's showing you that red icon or the red circle thing there is letting you know that, oh, this is what you've told me to look for. I've looked for it, I've clicked on it, and that's me done with that action. So this, I don't even have to say dot contains clear completed. I can even say dot contains clear. It doesn't have to be this full word. The only reason why I'll use clear completed fully is if I'm using dots, equals or something, but contains means that it will contain a partial word, doesn't have to contain the full word. So if I say side dot contains clear, this should also work. I'm going to rerun and you can see contains clear, clicked on it, and then it's clicked on it for me, and then there's nothing showing on the list. So we are going to then validate that there's nothing showing on the list after the clear completed button has been clicked on. Should not have descendants. So this is basically side.get, get the list of elements or get the locator for the element on the page. Then it should not contain anything at all. It shouldn't contain any descendants. It shouldn't contain any items on the list because I've obviously cleared it off the list. So if I run that, I'm expecting it to pass successfully. So getting side.get to do list, and it doesn't have anything showing on the list as well. So that obviously passed. I think I'm just going to stop. I'm going to stop here today. And if anyone is willing to share the screen so that we can, so the person will obviously follow the instructions on the page, on the, if the person is going to follow the installation prerequisites that I'm going to share on the slides, and we're going to do like all the walkthrough